Hello, all. Hope you're well. We're back again now. Obviously, Ashley, Dr. Gilly, if you want to stream this to your platform, just go ahead. If it gives you the option, I don't know. But anyway, we do have a few others coming tonight. We've got David Carson. We've got Nick Ronald. Richard's not going to be with us, but he'll be back next week. So tonight, I think this topic is up your lady's street about how to reprogram negative self-talk, which I think we're all guilty of doing that. Probably still are, to a degree. I don't know, but I hope everyone shares this, subscribes, participates, asks questions, whatever. So how do we start this? Like, why do we do it? Why do we talk bad about other people and ourselves? Who wants to start? Ashley, I'm going to pick on you.
Did I have that look of like, here it comes? No, I think the reason that we do it to ourselves is, I think as children, and we have those around us in our sphere of influence, if you will, whether it's a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, aunt, uncle, whoever it is, who is supposed to be guiding you and training you up in the way that you should go, but then they're speaking negatively into you, and then it becomes this identity that you wear, and then all of a sudden you start to create these own stories in your head of, well, I must not be good enough. If I don't get straight A's, I'm a bad kid. If I don't get this, like, it must mean I'm bad, or I'm not good enough, or whatever it is. And we continue to carry those identities into adulthood. And some of those patterns that we learned from others around us, we begin to replicate them into our own children. Yeah. Because of our own traumas and unhealing. And it's just this big spirally process that can end, but it's a decision that we have to make to end it.
Yes. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, yes. So I think slightly late. Yes. No, I mean, so how do we program negative self-talk? I think it definitely links to expectations. You know, we all, I think, put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do better, you know, and often that's linked to comparing ourselves to other people, and that's linked to social media, I think, where, you know, we see other people perhaps being successful and doing things, and why aren't we like them? But I think in society, you know, we from a young age, you know, there's expectations on our, you know, like our grade at school, our behaviour, and as we go up, you know, success, whatever that is, you know, and that can be successful relationships in a job with money. But, you know, if we feel we're not getting that, then I think it's very easy to start, you know, sort of having negative self-talk, you know, putting those you know, those voices of, well, you know, often we link to, you know, what, you know, we're failing in some way, you know, it often can be related to that, you know, but yeah, I think we put pressure on ourselves a lot of the time. You know, there's pressure from other people, and there's pressure we put on ourselves. I think the pressure we put on ourselves, which is linked to negative self-talk, more than other people.
Yeah. Do you think we speak bad about ourselves to obviously try and meet the expectations of our parents? Because there's a difference, isn't there, where we're trying to meet their expectations, but we're also trying to cover up our trauma, that traumatic experience, without actually identifying that it is the trauma. I think this is where Dr. Gilly comes in.
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like, it's natural to think about what are the environmental contributions to negative self-talk. And it's true that the environment does contribute. So if you fail a certain number of times, you're going to feel less confident, and you might just naturally just engage in more negative self-talk. But then you can also talk about like predispositions, and some people may just be more inherently, like, because of the way that their brain just functions, temperament, they were born that way, to kind of focus more on the negative, or on seeing the world a certain way. So yes, there's contribution of the environment, but then there is just also this individual difference, side to things, where it's like some people just, that's just kind of like more of the way that their brain works, which isn't helpful. But it's sort of like, I was having a conversation with someone recently, and we were talking about how, like, for example, for me, like, I am like, I'm really bad at math. It's like really one of the few subjects that I just can't, I just can't do it. I can't succeed in that area. And so for me, like, a B in a math class was an A to someone else. But for me, it was an A. Like, my B, is maybe someone else's A. But so what I'm trying to say is that it's all relative. And so I think to a certain degree, I think comparing, ways of thinking and trying to change someone and change people so they're all thinking like positively is unrealistic. And then there are, ways to manage that with different therapeutic strategies depending on like what kind of therapy you're using. But yeah, we have a guest.
Hey, can you all hear me?
Hi, guys.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's a joy to be back on the show. My goodness. And we're talking about self-talk. It's my most passionate subject. I love it. It's
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna have to introduce you. We've got Dr. Gilly, who's brilliant. She likes to tap into people's brains and try and manipulate the bad to the good. That's what she does. But she's brilliant at what.
We're on the same page, Dr. Gilly. Sorry, go on.
Then we've got Nick, who's also brilliant. And then we've got Ashley. There you go.
And that's brilliant too, I'm sure. Absolutely.
Wow. I sent some stabby stabs there, Adam.
What he's doing, you need the opportunity to accept it and whatever.
Ashley's brilliant. Ashley's brilliant.
Isn't it? All about being triggered.
How are you, Dave?
I love it. Love being triggered. Gives you the opportunity to go within and look why you're being triggered.
But we're not no one's being triggered here.
No, I know that. I know.
Absolutely. I know. Yeah, well, while I sort the battery out because this laptop's about to go flat, give a little introduction about who you are and what you do to help people.
Who, myself? Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Carson, and I'm a therapist. I'm a therapist, and I like to sort of help people become the best versions of their limited selves, right? Because that's quite interesting. Limited selves. I'm very passionate about self-talk, how negative self-talk affects the body, the neuroscience behind it, where it all begins, how the programs are developed, and all that sort of stuff. And I remind people about negative self-talk because it's so automatic. We don't even realize we're doing it. So I like to get out there and do talks about it to remind people so that maybe they will walk away from that talk or whatever with some tools to actually become more aware of what they're saying to themselves. Because once you do that, that's the great start, the awareness. So that's my introduction. Fantastic.
Absolutely. So I'm going to dive straight into it. Talk to us about the experience of Dave Carson when he was feeling shit. He was talking negative about himself and
Oh,
probably others as well.
Absolutely. Well, I grew up in Liverpool. It's quite a depressed, high unemployment, loads of drugs, loads. Well, you know, don't you, Adam?
I'm not from Liverpool, so I don't know.
Yeah, I know, but you know, you're close by. So I lived in a very deprived area. And because growing up, my attachments that I had to my primary caregivers, like my mum and my dad, they weren't that great, okay? Which isn't a great start in life anyway. So I basically grew up with no self-esteem, no confidence. I thought I was useless. I thought I was worthless. I just, you know, I used to catastrophize all the time. I would use a thing called labeling, where I would use horrible words about myself. I just wasn't in a good place. Through that, I attracted similar people, because we tend to attract people, you know, that either are going to teach us something or like ourselves, you know. And I attracted like the people that were also just like me. And this went on for a number of years, and I was very aware of the physiological effects upon my body. And at some point, I actually left Liverpool. So I actually left that whole environment, and I moved to Sussex. And that was like the beginning for me. In fact, it was the very first book I read was The Magic of Thinking Big. And I remember reading this book, and I was like, whoa, this is like a different language to me, you know, because I would never been positive. I didn't know how to be positive, really, because I had all these things buried and going on underneath. So to cut a long story short, I've been on a mission for quite a number of years, 35 years, of discovering who I am and what was true about me and what was false about me. And I got to a point where I realized that actually, not just me, but all of us and everybody on the planet, we're all beautiful manifestations of existence at our core, you know, in truth. And I was just like an onion with lots of layers of crap, basically. And I've been peeling them all off. And, you know, yeah. Brilliant.
Any questions, guys?
What were in the layers?
What were in the layers? Well, lots of things, to be fair, Dr. Gilly. Just being programmed by people around me that I wasn't good enough, you know. And, you know, when you go through life feeling like you're not good enough, it affects all aspects of you. It affects your physical health, because when you're in a state of negative self-talk, it affects I think it's the right side of the prefrontal cortex, which is directly connected to the fight, flight, freeze response. So, of course, I was walking around feeling like this and talking like this to myself. So my body was in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze. And all these chemicals are being released into my body. So, yeah, it wasn't great. Lots of layers, Dr. Gilly, lots of layers. But I discovered, you know, I understood that it all begins when we're very young. Our primary caregivers are so important, because, you know, if you get a good start in life, then you've got a much better chance, really, because you maybe not have as many of these unconscious layers that are telling you that you're no good, or you're not good enough, or you'll never achieve that or achieve this. And over the course of the years, I've discovered that that my confidence is growing in a beautiful way, you know, and I've noticed that I'm doing more things than what I would ever have done. You know, I'm 60 years old and I've never felt better in my life. You know, it's a really cool journey. I recommend it to everybody, you know.
Yeah.
So Dave, first of all, say I know Sussex. I was brought up there, and I went to University of Liverpool, so I know both.
Oh, there you go. Look at that. Good connection.
So with self-talk, I mean, we all self-talk, whether it's positive or negative. I guess the question is, how do you turn perhaps negative self-talk into positive self-talk?
Well, there's lots of ways to do that, to be fair. I mean, obviously, the number one thing for me was awareness, because they become like neural pathways are created in the brain, because this thing has been repeated over and over and over again, and it just becomes hardwired and then becomes a loop. So it's a matter of breaking that loop. And I think partly it's education. You know, I obviously nowadays with the onset of the internet and everything, there's everything out there for you really to discover things about yourself and move forward. So I sort of just discovered really, you know, it's so anyway, there's lots of ways of doing it. Yeah, let's have a look. You've got awareness. One of the things that I used to do was meditation. Now, not meditation to sit there and empty my thoughts, meditation to be quiet and notice my thoughts. And it's interesting talking with lots of people when they do get into this state, lots of thoughts come in, and some of them are negative, obviously. And then it gives you the opportunity to notice, if you see what I mean. I mean, they say, I don't know where they get the numbers from, but we have like between 10 and 60,000 thoughts a day. And they reckon 80% of them thoughts are negative. And the one that really got my attention was 95% of those thoughts, those negative thoughts, are normally repetitive. So it's like, what a great start. You know, like the average kid who lives in a reasonably positive home, they say, gets told no around 140,000 times up to the age of 18. I mean, what a fantastic start in life, you know, when you've heard no, you can't, 140,000 times. So it's definitely awareness. There's lots of other things as well. Like if you notice yourself saying something negative, this is awareness is the beginning, basically, because without the awareness, you're not going to be able to do the other things. But you might notice yourself saying something. And one thing you can do is like reverse it or change it and just say something positive. Someone might say, oh, what an idiot. Actually, I'm not an idiot. I'm not an idiot at all. You know, because I believe that a good amount of our thoughts are false anyway. You know, they're just the whole basis of who we are revolves around all the experiences and all of the programs that were picked up along the way, you know. So we're at the mercy of our unconscious mind. I think it was a huge mistake, whoever, you know, natural selection creating the brain. I think if we had a bit of more of a connection with our unconscious, it might be a bit easier. But unfortunately, we have to go to therapists who actually talk with the unconscious, like a hypnotist or other various things. But yeah, I talk a lot, by the way.
I can tell.
I can't help it. It's an affliction, but I quite like it, you know. It's about, with these programs, right? Some of them you want to keep, you know.
No, I think one of those layers we should dive into is relationships.
Interesting one.
Yeah, which obviously I know one of those things you were bringing up, Dave, is definitely awareness, but the other one's acceptance as well. I know that, but relationships as well.
I think sorry, I'll shut up.
No, go on. No, relationships is because, right, how do we, because I know a few of us have witnessed this and experienced this, is we've got all this trauma built in. We're already beating the crap out of ourselves in our subconscious and conscious mindset. When we get into a new relationship, the in-laws instantly don't accept us and they're already judging us. How do we get around that?
Well, if we've got loads of baggage, loads of stuff, and we haven't done anything about it, when you go into a new relationship, you're going to take all that in there with you anyway. And people sense it very quickly. Good 3 months into a relationship, people start becoming who they truly are, you know, because you can only pretend for so long, you know. And this is one of the issues with all of this. It affects all aspects of our lives, especially relationships. And you're going to find that someone who's got a lot of baggage, as we all know, is going to be triggered a lot. And it's, you know, it's how the two people sort of connect with each other in that respect, how they deal with that sort of situation of dealing with being triggered, and how you communicate with each other and stuff like that. I guess in a relationship, it's fantastic because it's a reflection of you, you know. So it's like, it is a great opportunity to do a lot of work on yourself in a relationship, rather than thinking they're a nightmare or it's all down to them. A lot of people tend to go outside of themselves, and we need to go more inside of ourselves, and that's where we'll find all the answers, I believe. But
so how do go on, Nick?
I read about an interesting study at university where they got a group of people who all define themselves, take on study, as really lacking confidence, some to the point of being, you know, anxious. They were so lacking confidence, and they gave them each person an equal number of compliments and criticisms, and they asked them afterwards to say what the compliments were, what the criticisms were. They could only remember the criticisms.
Absolutely.
They couldn't remember any of the compliments, and I think it's quite interesting. You know, I think the link there, you know, if you're perhaps lacking confidence, you'll be more susceptible to things you think are critical, and perhaps screen out the compliments that do come. So
exactly that, Nick. And the brain's actually wired, apparently. It's wired for the negative. It's natural to go to the negative. That's why it's hard work to be positive. And apparently it goes back to primal times when we were out hunting and stuff. And its role was to protect us and make us a little bit wary and worried. But now we have different stresses, different things going on in life, lack of money, relationship. The list goes on, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we should hear from the women now.
Absolutely. Come on, ladies.
Mainly Ashley, and I'm going to dive straight into it. How do we have self-care when we're talking bad about ourselves?
That is a great question. In my experience, as far as even just for me in general, or some of the clients that I work with, when they're into this negative mindset, one of the first things that we do is we look at, okay, what are you telling yourself? And we become aware of what it is. And then honestly, we talk through it, and it's challenging the thoughts as well. That's one of the biggest things that we have to do for ourselves. But when working with clients, we can also do that for them, where they can have the ability to channel the thought and ask, or challenge the thought and ask, is this true? Right? So if we're having a negative moment, like I'm a bad mom, is that true? No, my kids are alive. They're thriving. They're learning all the things. Like, I am doing the absolute best I can in the moment that we're in today, or the season of life we're in today. Right? So you have the ability to challenge the thoughts. But the other thing that I have my clients do is journal. Journaling obviously isn't for everybody, but if I can get you to write down a couple sentences, or do something like brain dumping in the morning or at night, where you're just literally writing out all of your thoughts, whether they're negative, positive, whatever comes to mind at first, you're just writing. And then you put a big giant X through it, you crumple it up, you don't even look at it, and you throw it away, because it's clearing out all of your mind space. Or if you do look at it, look at which ones seem to be repeating over and over again. Because in reality, we have thousands of thoughts, especially as women. We have thousands and thousands of thoughts every single day. Most of them are the same thought repeated, just phrased differently. So you really, again, have to challenge it. But when you brain dump and you get everything out on paper, it's clearing that mind space, where then you can go back in focused and say, okay, how do I take care of me in this moment? And honestly, I look at the self-care piece as that journaling is self-care, because you're just emptying your thoughts out. You're emptying your feelings out, because then it allows your empty vessel to fill back up with really important things to you, things that become that priority. or things that you enjoy doing. So when you're in that negative headspace, that's also a time to recognize, hey, how am I taking care of myself today? And I know you constantly challenge me with that all the time, anytime we talk, like, hey, have you taken a break today? Have you done this today? But it's one of those things of you can mentally ask yourself, what did I do for myself today? How did I take care of me today? I went for a walk before with the dog, right? Because it's been a busy week and I'm like, okay, I need to move. I need to get outside. It's beautiful out now. It's not raining. And it's like, I need to walk. I need to move. So that's what I did. So it's in those moments that, yes, you can be alone with your thoughts when you're going for a walk or something like that. But it's also giving you the space to just clear your brain and look at everything around you and how grateful you can be to be alive and in the moment, right? Because there's things all around you, the flowers, the green space, butterflies, birds. I mean, all of those things, right? So it's finding those little things that you can be in gratitude for that also can bring you joy and a smile to your face if you allow them, right? That's the biggest piece. You have to be open and allowing for that to happen. Because if you're closed off and you're tight-fisted, then it doesn't matter how much self-care you do, you're going to go nowhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very eloquently.
Yeah, and that was my experience today, because obviously I'm thinking past tense, and because I know Nick and Dave, you know, it's been freaking hot today with this weather. It really has, and every time it's this kind of weather, my mental capacity is saying, you need a drink, go and get an alcohol beverage. But today I thought, you know what? My intentions weren't to have a drink. It didn't. But the mentally it was there. So instead of me going to the shop and going to cave and relapse, I reached out to an AA buddy. And I had about a 20-minute conversation with him. And he basically gave me some brilliant advice. And that's exactly what I executed. He basically just said, get yourself busy, distract your mind, distract yourself, forget everything, and just get on with it. That's exactly what I did. Because that's what I needed.
I mean, a lot of people I speak to, you know, I try to get the point across that there's a difference between struggling and failure. You know, we all struggle at times, and that's normal. But I think when we start terming that we failed at something, that puts a whole different sort of perspective in our mind. So if we might be struggling to have a relationship, you know, get a partner, but that doesn't mean we have failed. We're failed to get a relationship. We're failure at relationships. I mean, you know, and I think it's easy if we sometimes when we have a self-talk, we can catastrophize, where we turn something we're struggling with, which is normal. We all struggle with things at times, into this, catastrophize it and make it into, in our mind, a failure. We failed at this thing, when actually, you know, it's not a failure, it's struggling. And struggling is normal, and struggling is part of the process of growing. And, you know, so with you, Adam, if you're struggling, you know, with you know, moments at times with your alcohol, it doesn't mean you failed. It's just part of your journey to struggle at times. So I think to me, that's
because Nick, I've got that mindset that the definition of failure is the day you stop trying. That's when you become a failure.
Well, yeah.
Am I right, ladies?
I
don't like trying, by the way. Sorry, Dr. Jelly.
Yeah, no, I just want to take a step back also and just, like, I guess explain, like, my perspective on, you know, challenging thoughts. And I want to say, like, a lot of what Ashley described, I do like a similar version of that with my clients too. But one thing I struggled with in my training was that cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like a lot of, you know, that's cognitive restructuring, a lot of what you guys are describing, the positive thinking and the realistic thinking. That is, you know, for a while was like the standard of care, right, for therapy. And so in college, you know, there's this big emphasis on CBT and, you know, an empirically based practices are CBT. And so I felt a little bit like a robot, like I was being pigeonholed into this. I had to, right? Like it's CBT or the highway. Otherwise, right? Like they won't take me seriously when I want to go to graduate school. That's how it felt. And at the same time, it felt like something was missing. Like, yes, it makes sense to me that you want to experiment with your thoughts and to change your thinking by replacing this bad or maladaptive thought with a positive, right, thought. But that felt critical and demeaning, in my opinion, because I was like, who's to say that this is a maladaptive thought and that this is a positive thought or a good thought? And then it's like, you see people in therapy and they're just like, oh God, I can't get my brain to change. Then they're hard on themselves for not being able to think positively. I hated that. Like I hated that. I hated this concept of there's a right way to think and a wrong way to think. And then I learned acceptance and commitment therapy, and that changed things for me. Finally, I found, a type of therapy that just made sense. And I incorporate CBT strategies. But the way I see it, like, I don't want to limit people. I like to teach them different methods, different ways to deal with what I like to call unhelpful thoughts. And what is an unhelpful thought? In terms of ACT, you think about what is important to you, because what's important to me is going to be different than what's important to Nick and what's important to Ashley. And there's individual differences in terms of people's values. And in determining whether a thought is helpful or unhelpful, the question is this thought bringing me closer to the things I care about, or is it pushing me farther away? For example, if I really care about like family, that's an easy one, okay? Family is one of my top values, If I'm in a situation where I have the thought like you said before, like I'm a bad mom, right? Is that bringing me closer to my value of family, or is it pushing me farther away? The obvious answer is it's pushing me farther away, right? So then the question is, what do you do with the thoughts? And here's what is the difference between ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, and cognitive restructuring, the cognitive piece of CBT. It's not necessarily that you want to replace it with a different thought. It's about what do you do with the thought? You notice it, you treat it like a fart, right? Like this is just, my brain is making noise right now. Thank you, brain, and then I can use information in a way that helps me. It's a filtration system, right? Like your brain is giving you information, there's sensory input all the time. And then this is you practicing which sensory input am I going to take seriously and use it as advice, and which am I just going to give a nod at and then it's going to go on its merry way. And if it comes along, then that's fine because it's just another fart. Like it's like another bodily process, and it's only as heavy or as important as you make it. And then there are specific strategies where you can practice that. But the bottom line is that it's not that this is a bad thought or this is a good thought. It's that this is a thought. It's just a thought. Now, what do you want to do with the information? And you can decide based on your values, and you can live a more meaningful and fulfilling life that way. It just seems very practical to me.
So
interesting.
Just to check, so Dr. Gilly, if you have just to check I've got it right. So if you have a negative thought, you either challenge it and question whether it's valid, or you just let it go, let it pass through and just don't retain it and absorb it in a sense. You just let it. You don't have
exactly. But the goal is not to not entertain it, because if I tell you don't think about a white bear, right? Like don't think about a white bear, especially don't think about a white bear in a navy blue suit and holding red roses.
Of course, that's what you think about. Yeah. Now I'm thinking about it. Now,
exactly. The more you try not to think something, it's like any natural process. If you try to control your sleep, if you try to control where you're looking, like you get in your head, and then it only gets worse. Yeah. So the point of ACT is to just accept and let it do its thing, right? Like your thoughts are going to do their thing. And then, you observe them and you just say, okay, thank you, brain. There's even like strategies where you can make fun of your thoughts. Like, for example, having the thought, I'm a bad mom is different than I'm a bad mom. Like, why? Why is it different? Because of the feel of it, right? The vibe, but it's still the same thought. We're just playing with the language. If you had the thought, I'm a bad mom in Japanese, it wouldn't mean anything to you because you don't understand Japanese. You don't know the thought is I'm a bad mom. So why is it that only in English when I have the thought I'm a bad mom, it means something to me? And that just shows like thoughts are really only as important, as you make them. They're just sounds.
Yeah.
That's exactly correct. They're just sounds. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, Ashley, just take over a minute. I need to go and deal with my herd of elephants. So, yeah, I'll be right back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Whatever, I guess. No, I like that you say that, Gilly, because I used to work with, she was like a mindset coach, and it was more so like, if there were certain things that came up in your life, it was, okay, how do you cut the cord? And she did a lot of visualization stuff of like putting certain feelings or thoughts in that bubble and almost asking, different questions or whatever. And then like watching the bubble, like either float away or you pop it. And then, like that type of stuff. Because I will say, like, you mentioned, just having those positive affirmations, just think positive, I'm like,
I would want to slap people. I'm like,
bullshit.
I can't.
That doesn't work,
Yeah.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, it might work for some people, but I am very much one person, like, I can't.
Yeah. For someone with an anxiety disorder or depressive disorder, right? Like your brain is wired a certain way and this is how I am,
Mm-hmm.
And then it feels like you shame yourself because you can't do it as well as someone else.
Yeah, or just like say affirmations every single day. Okay.
There's a book.
Yeah, I don't remember. I have ADHD. Yeah, okay.
And it's not, but for me personally, it's just not something that I do. Like I can't get my brain around just repeat affirmations 20 times a day until you believe it. Like,
There's a book.
It's not so much that you believe it. It will start. I think it boils down to them neural pathways again. I mean, these negative programs have been built up over years. And I personally believe affirmations do have their place in the sense that if the brain always goes for the most powerful program, and if it's you being like more positive to yourself or more kind to yourself, more so, then that will eventually become the norm. I mean, obviously, we're all different. And it's funny, it's interesting because I really rate affirmations to the extent that I listen to affirmations every night for 8 hours while I'm sleeping. Now, it could well be placebo, and it doesn't matter because if it works...
It doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And from my experience of the people in my circle, because we're all sort of on a similar page, and we like to be aware of what we're saying so we can create some change. That affirmations I've seemed to have had a good impact. Interesting because I've used them a lot, and I can't say 100% it was the affirmations that have brought me to this point where I am today, obviously. But I think it's been very helpful for me. Definitely.
Yes. I think it's different. It's different for everyone, which is why I said before, I want to equip people and give them a variety of options. But also you get to know the person, right? Their clinical history, and then you kind of you throw things and you see like, how is this person responding to this? Or, for some people who are more concrete, I use more CBT strategies with them. And then if I see it doesn't really help, I start to try to get a little bit more abstract and move into ACT. But I guess, I was bringing that in as like an alternative,
Absolutely. I agree with you, Gilly. Absolutely. But I'm not coming from like a therapeutic sense. So I'm not talking like if I'm doing my work with a client, which I do incorporate a lot of self-talk into it, because we've got to look at the inner dialogue because that's quite important. But you've got your average Joe who's got no education, his life is not sort of towards this area of getting to know yourself or expanding your consciousness or whatever you want to call it, and it's these people that are just walking around in these loops and they don't even know it, and they haven't got a therapist to help them. It's
I think there's a book, I think it's by some guy, Adam Sandler, like the actor, and he was saying how, a lot of the thinking of, with self-improvement move towards trying to, see the positive, obviously, and and be optimistic about everything. And he was saying how, for a lot of people, life is tough and quite a struggle. And there has to be a bit of acknowledgement that,
Yeah.
We can't be just, we'll look at the positive everything, and then we'll see everything's life is great. And he said, well, actually, for a lot of people, life is genuinely a struggle, and you have to start acknowledging that, life's a struggle. But then obviously you want to develop a way of coping with life and having a positive mindset, but you can't ignore the struggles, you have. And he said, that sometimes there's almost this shift towards trying to have a unrealistic positive self-thinking. I just thought I'd mention that's quite an interesting thought.
No, absolutely. It's a valid point. Like Gilly said and Ashley said, we're all different. We all respond to different ways of moving forward. But it's great as a therapist, like you ladies were saying, we've got all these strategies, and it's fantastic when you're working with someone that they've had the gonads to actually embark on some sort of therapy. It's great. But I'll be in the street and I'll hear someone, like for instance, I might hear someone say something. I might know them a little bit, and I will often, not like rudely, but I don't know, I just get this edge because I can see the loops, and you just want to help everybody in a sense, it's a bit of a weird one, but.
So Russ Harris has he's not the one who created acceptance and commitment therapy. That was Stephen Hayes, but Russ Harris does a lot of work on ACT. Just for whoever's interested to YouTube him, if you literally just YouTube Russ Harris ACT, you'll find a bunch of cartoons that he makes with explanations of different ACT strategies. But anyway, his famous book is called The Happiness Trap, which is similar to what Nick was referring to, right? And basically the idea behind the title is at what point are you happy? When do you know you've reached the peak of happiness? It's so arbitrary, and having happiness as the goal is almost never, if never, successful, because you think you've reached it and then you haven't, and you experience a dip. Oh, I failed at reaching happiness. Now I have to go up again. And what is happiness? So it's more about not achieving, but experiencing and kind of, journeying through a sense of meaning and fulfillment. And you do that by doing things that align with your values. So you look at your behavior and you ask yourself, is this consistent with my value of family, of friendship, of creativity, of adventure, and so on.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that, because a lot of our values are shaped by our programs as well. So it's it goes so deep. So we could be associating something with our values, and our values may not be true in themselves. They could be tainted in a negative way, if you see what I mean, through your programming.
Well, and I know one of the things that I do even with my clients too is if they come to me with some sort of negative thought or identity, if you will, the first question I ask is, where did that come from? To begin the trace back of, did somebody tell you that when you were a kid? Were you told to be seen and not heard? Where did it come from? To try to get to the root of, why are we repeating this now as an adult? And working through that process, because all of us are much like an onion. There's so many layers. And when you obviously think that, I got to this identification of where this thought or this identity was rooted in, and then all of a sudden you think you dealt with it and you got through it and you healed it, and all of a sudden it comes back again. Okay, that's your indication. There's still more that's deeper within that you haven't peeled back the layer of yet. So let's keep working at that. Let's keep peeling away until we truly get to what's going on. But it's a process, and you have to be willing to to surrender to that process and be open to doing the work. Like I tell my clients, you're not showing up for me, you're showing up for you. So you're going to get out what you put in. So if there isn't work happening on both sides, then I don't know what else I can do for you type of a situation. So there has to be like that give and take in that client, therapist, client, coach, whatever it is situation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I've literally just shared a post. I should have done it earlier, but I've literally just shared the post. It goes off what all of you have literally just been talking about. And it's, if you don't leave your past in the past, it will destroy your future. Live for what today has to offer, not for what yesterday has taken away.
Mm.
Yeah,
that's the challenge. Again, the programs, we're always fighting.
It's only a challenge, Dave. It's only a challenge if we let it be a challenge. And to be honest, a challenge is actually good, because if we find something easy,
absolutely,
then what are we learning? Because if we're finding everything easy in life, what are we learning? And if we make a mistake, how can we rectify it without struggling? We need to struggle in life.
Well, that is another thing that we only grow. Sorry, we only grow when we're being challenged. If things weren't hard, we wouldn't grow, we wouldn't develop, we wouldn't progress. We wouldn't.
I think the brain likes comfort as well, doesn't it? Because like when you embark on something different, it's like, what's going on? Is this safe? Is this all right? You do get that sort of resistance going on, but I love all that. It's great.
So
I think challenges are fantastic.
So I know Dr. Gilly was talking about, like, have we got to that point of, are we happy? So I'd like to ask all of you, have you reached that part yet?
No.
Well, I'm going to say that I am very happy. I'm a very joyful guy, very happy. I'm very lucky and I'm great gratitude for it. So I just want to share this with other people. So that's where I am. Obviously, I'm not always happy but predominantly I'm in a good space. And I just see life as happening most of the time. So I don't associate too much negativity to anything, because I just view it differently, I guess, it doesn't mean that I don't respect the things that we can learn and stuff, but I think seeing the way you perceive what goes on in your life that can make all the difference. So, but I'm gonna be bold enough to
you reached it.
I didn't hear.
Have you reached that point yet, Ashley?
Me? Well,
no, she hasn't.
Well, that's the hard part for me, though, just because, like, happiness is obviously a feeling, right? So, are we ever truly, like Dr. Gilly?
Yes.
Like, are
it's fleeting. It's fleeting. Yes.
So, there is a difference between happiness and joy. Like, when you are filled with joy, then it seems like, oh, well, you're happy, right? But if you can be filled with joy, even when things are shit, you've achieved what you're looking for. Because again, happiness is a feeling.
It's
so
also
whether or not there is a circumstance that's happening in your life and you can still be joyful in that circumstance, then you've achieved what you're looking for.
Yeah. I don't know. According to Inside Out, joy is pretty similar to happiness. But I was going to say it's like meaning, attaining a sense of meaning, right? So you're right. Happiness is an emotion. But then do you feel like you're doing things that are fulfilling right now? It's a little bit more concrete. Do you feel content, right? I always put that as like the standard. Like, are you content?
Because
yes.
But they've done a lot of surveys of people who say they're happy, and they find it's linked to people who have a purpose in life. I think, you know, people know, you know, yeah, they have a purpose. They know what, you know, their why in life, what they're passionate about, and then they tend to link. They feel that feeling of happiness. I think when people, I think with myself, I think when I guess struggled to find happiness, it appears when I was struggling to find my purpose. You know, I didn't know what I was doing in my life, and things weren't quite working out. And I think, you know, to me, it's a lot of it's about trying to have that balance. So if you're you know, happy in some areas, so, you know, for my, you know, me it's my, you know, my son, that's always a happy thing. But if you're struggling in other areas, then there can be out of balance, and that's where, I suppose, you know, happiness, like you said, is a very vague concept. But if you want to be happy, you've got to have some level of balance, you know, because if you're very happy in some areas and very unhappy or stressed in other areas, then it can be a discourse, isn't it?
And that goes back to what I said, and that goes back, Nick, to what I was talking about the other podcast. It was the fact that when it comes to mothers, they seem to keep moving forward because they're seeing their kids being happy and thriving, even though the mothers feel absolutely shit. So where's the balance there? And this is what I'm going to ask you, ladies. I'm going to pick on you a little bit, which I like to. But where's the balance there where you're focused on the well-being of the kids and making sure they're happy and content and all that, compared to focus on yourself and putting you first?
Yeah. So like if you value family, let's say, right, then of course you want to focus on your kids' well-being, but your kids are not in isolation, right? They have a relationship with you. How are you deriving, right, anything, right? You want to say joy. Like if you're deriving meaning from this relationship, like with your kids, like what are you getting out of it? That's where the selfishness, you know, comes in. Yes. Yeah. And then the other thing is like, that is not your only value, right? It's not just family. Like typically, you know, we'll pick like 10, and you can have more than that. It's just hard to keep more than 10 in mind, or even 10. But like, it's just to point out to people, like there's more than one egg in your basket. Like you've got a lot of things going on in your life that are important to you. And so if one thing doesn't seem to be working out, there could be something else, or there could be 5 other things, right? And so it's like, I think Nick was saying this, it's like, it's a balance, right? Like you're balancing these different kind of areas of, you know, purpose. And I think that's a big reason that keeps us alive. We feel like we have a sense of meaning or purpose. Otherwise, what's the point?
Exactly. And this is what I keep saying to Kerry when she's obviously talking negative, which I understand why she talks negative, but when she's calling herself a failure and she's giving up on herself and stuff like that, I'm like, hang on a minute, let's just put brakes on this. You are more than just a mother. You're more than just a wife. You're more than just a sister, an auntie, a cousin. Yeah. You are you for a reason.
Yeah, good job. But, yes, absolutely. You are you. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, you are you. But we all, and not just females, males as well, we forget that. We do. We forget that. And don't we come up with some sort of an excuse to just brush it under the carpet and try and move forward?
I find it incredible we can't see our self-worth. You know, like if we had translucent bodies and we were able to see the processes that go on in the body, we'd all realize how amazing we are. You know, it's all this crap just pick up along the way. It's like, and then, like I say, you know, we have to tread through it all and try and make the path smooth for ourselves so that we can have some sort of quality of life. But it's an interesting journey. It's a beautiful journey. You know what I always like to say? I always say, but I had a mantra. Here we go, ladies. I had a mantra, right? I was a bit obsessive with it, but it was, I'm a beautiful manifestation of existence. And do you know what? There was no part of me that could deny that, because that's an absolute truth as far as I'm concerned. We're incredible. So, and believe it or not, again, it could be placebo, but I started to really like myself through just using that particular mantra, because it sort of put me in context with my true self, if you like. If there's, you know, I know that's quite subjective, a true self, but you know, that incredibleness aspect of us that we all forget about, you know.
I think that's wonderful. That I should teach that to all the teens I'm working with. Maybe body image concerns will go down, right? Like I'm a beautiful manifestation. What was it of existence? It's more about just like, right? I'm alive and I was created this way, right? For a reason. And or I don't know.
Free.
Like
you're completely free in reality. In truth, you're completely free. You know? So sorry, Jim. Be quiet.
Exactly. The only time we're going to be trapped is in ourselves.
Yeah.
In ourselves. That's the only time we're trapped. And we're the only ones that have the key in the lock. We just need to unlock that cycle.
And what Dave is saying is that that's a beautiful thing. The fact that we are even trapped in ourselves, that is a beautiful thing in itself.
Absolutely.
And that people don't recognize that. Yeah.
You know, there's some people say as well, you know, everything that happens in our lives is happening for a reason. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. It has to be happening for some reason. And often it's an opportunity to reflect on yourself. The universe has constantly given us the opportunity to look at ourselves. It's whether we choose to do that or not.
I suppose it goes back to our self-acceptance. We've got to be comfortable with our fate. Well, you know, our comfortable with the failures, successes. You know, it's all you know, whatever we perceive they are. You know, we've got to be comfortable with ourselves, and that's everything. You know, that makes us. You know, so you know, accept that the good and the bad makes us unique and makes us who we are.
Can I ask you guys, right? Because we're all sort of, you know, wanting to be, I don't know, to be the best maybe that we can be in whatever way that is, very subjective. But do you find, because I find this, do you find that when stuff does come into your life now, when you get to this point where you're really getting on top of, you know, your self-talk and all the other stuff, that your reactions to these things, you may automatically react the way you might have reacted in the past, but it lasts for like a much shorter time, and that time seems to reduce and reduce and reduce and reduce over time, so that it's like eventually it's like, shit, normally I'd be like, this would be a nightmare, but now it's all right. I could deal with this, you know. And I love that. That's the journey, isn't it, of getting to that point where you can actually take on life and get through it in a beautiful way. You see what I mean?
Well, with me, Dave, the answer to that question is when a curveball's thrown my way, is my response and reaction to it is actually negative, and it actually is. And then about an hour later, I'm thinking, shit, I fucked up here. And then I get on a bit of a guilt trip. For a bit until I thought, right, okay, I need to start learning. See this is a lesson.
Well, I would say this took me an hour. Next time, I'm going to try and do 40 minutes. And then keep bringing it down to like 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And then, woohoo! It's that awareness again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. Any final words, guys and lasses?
Love it.
Don't worry.
Be
happy. Okay, and we're off.
I just throw now, like I think you know, just briefly on the self-care. I think to have self-care, you've got to be a little bit selfish, and I think you know, this sort of
good point.
You know, that however you approach all these things, you know, you got to think of other people, but actually, ultimately, you got to think of yourself first. That's the only way really going to.
Yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ashley?
Sorry, Ashley.
She can't think of anything.
No.
Wow.
Oh, stop it. No, I think really in reality, it's remembering that anything is possible. Like if you really want to reprogram your brain, you can do it. It's just going to take some work. You didn't get to negative thoughts overnight. They were compilation of years worth of negative self-talk, people screaming into your ears, maybe not screaming, but you know, the whispers, the chatter, right? So it's not something that's going to be undone overnight, but it is possible to undo it. Just believing that that can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Gilly?
I've already said my piece. Someone wrote not even torching.
Be happy.
I thought he was going to continue the lyrics. Every little thing.
I don't know. I guess if I had to say something, I would say like, forgive yourself. That's my message, right? Like it's not your fault, right? That your brain is giving you information. And then the question is, like, how are you gonna, use it to make your life better, in a nutshell. So forgive yourself.
Yeah. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Right. Okay.
I haven't said my one.
I think that's it.
I'm only messing. I was going to say,
I think that's it.
Just be happy and realize that life is very short, because before you know it, it goes by. And be kind to yourself, and you deserve it, because you're all beautiful manifestations of existence. That's it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Right. Next week, Nick, this is aimed at you as well. So, because you text me every single week, what time are we on? Even though I tag you in a post on Facebook.
Okay.
And I've emailed you what times we're on.
Tell me
like
what time's it.
So, like I said to Richard, check the freaking emails, mate. No, run next week, 6:30 p.m. UK. 6:30. So I ain't got a clue what time that is, Ashley. I ain't got a clue. I'm not even going to tell you. But anyway, that's for you to find out. The topic is the importance of creating a positive relationship with food. So yeah, that's the topic. So I'm gonna let you go.
It's been a joy to
please share this all, and the YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, they're going to be uploaded throughout the weekend. So keep an eye out, Dave.
Great, nice to meet you, Dave.
There you go.
And you guys, it's been a joy. Yeah, I love all the. I love it. It's great. We're all,
See you, nice to see all you guys. Good to see you again, Ashley.